Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Healing Conversations. My name is Einav Avni from Untangled Healing. A little bit about myself: I am a pain-free living specialist, and I work with people mostly with chronic pain and chronic illness to help them heal or relieve or release how they're feeling. This podcast is especially for people who, with ah, I don't have my words, but the podcast is in this podcast, I interview people who has a story, a passion, a message for other people to accept and to be inspired from. And with no further ado, in today's conversation, I am speaking with Meryl Hayton. Meryl, hi, so lovely to have you here today.
Hi, thank you for
Okay,
having me.
thank you. I'm really excited to learn a little bit more about you and about what you do. So let's get started. Tell us a little bit about you.
Well, I say that I'm a spiritual beach loving cat mom because I love all things woo woo. I live at the beach, which was always a dream of mine. And I'm a cat mom. so, I've been on my own lifelong healing journey, which led me to becoming a coach and finding EFT tapping. Which we'll talk about today, and optimal EFT. And I've married all of that together with law of attraction to create a business. And I feel blessed that I've followed my soul's purpose, which has become my life's purpose. And I'm just on a mission to help as many women as I possibly can to feel empowered and confident and trust themselves and have incredible love for themselves and accept themselves and self-esteem and all of that, so that they don't hold back at all in their lives. They don't hold back in their personal lives with their intimate relationships or their friends or hobbies that they want to do, or having fun or travel or whatever, right? Or maybe in their business, to really put themselves out there and believe in what they do and believe in themselves so that they have more clients and money, and really live their dreams. That's what I do.
I love that. It's so needed, really. I think so many of us really, as you say, we're pulling ourselves backwards. We're not allowing ourselves to go out there, fulfill
Mhm.
our dreams, fulfill our purpose, and we always. It feels to me, that maybe I'm generalizing a little bit, that a lot of us is really keep ourselves. We are so used to be at the back of the queue that we don't really allow ourselves to find that opportunity to go out there.
Yeah, I mean, my clients who come to me are used to taking care of other people. They've been responsible, maybe even since a teenager. This has come up a few times with my clients. They've been responsible for others or a parent since they've been a teenager. So it's just their nature to prioritize everybody else and not themselves. So then their dreams, their wishes, their own self-care is last on the list, right? And then they are now in their 50s and they're like, I'm not feeling fulfilled and I'm not really that happy. And I've got all these regrets and resentments or sadness or something. And they feel disconnected from themselves or their life or their purpose, right?
And
So,
so before we touch on how it is that you help these women, tell me a little bit about your own journey. How did you find your purpose and what it is that you wanted to do in life?
well, I was brought up in a business oriented family, so I was told, kind of pushed in that direction. So I did go to college for a couple of years studying business and accounting, and I had a job, a corporate job that was in, the cubicle thing with no windows, uh, in the accounting department. And but from a little girl, I was very creative and I loved doing my nails. And then I started doing other people's nails when I was a teenager. And I thought that would probably be like a second profession, like what I'm doing now. But it ended up that I just had this calling to want to do nails and open up a salon. So that's what I did. I left corporate. I went to nail school while I was there and quit college, and then eventually quit corporate. And I had my own business for over 25 years. I did nails for about 30 years. And it really was all about beauty on the outside. I was always helping people feel really beautiful on the outside. And I was taught from a young girl that that was really important, right? In order to be liked, in order to be loved, in order to be in a relationship or something like that. And then, but all of my relationships that I developed in the salon with my clients, you know, I had clients for 20 years and I moved a few times my location and people followed me. And I developed very quickly, very deep relationships with people. And because I loved to just, you know, connect on that deep level. And I really wanted to feel love and acceptance and beautiful on the inside. So that was my journey that I was always really following outside of the salon. And it led me to always surround myself with people who I felt that I really looked up to or aspired to be like. They were very spiritual. They were very wise. And I felt really lucky to have those people as my guides, you know, my free guides, my friends, you know. And I was led to become a yoga teacher, and I did 2 trainings. So I'm a 500-hour registered yoga teacher, which I taught for almost 10 years. And then I incorporated a lot of meditation in there. And then I felt that I was going to close my salon. And what was that going to look like? What I was led to becoming a coach, but what kind, and who was my niche, and, you know, all that. And I was told by someone a mentor of mine, she said, you know, you love energy medicine and you love spirituality and you love, you know, holistic health and alternative health and all of that. Just start researching jobs. So I did. And I found a mind-body medicine practitioner. And I found there's this yoga and meditation institute that's a few hours from me. And I got the catalog and I literally opened the catalog, like right to the page that said mind body medicine, you know, intro to mind body medicine class for 4 days. And I said, well, I guess that's where I'm going to take that. You know, I mean, it was like such a sign. Yeah. So I go and I drive up to this beautiful, it's like a little resort. And I take this class, and she ended up becoming my first coach, but she did a lot of EFT tapping and spoke a lot about worthiness and I'm enough and feeling enough and all of that. And I said, yeah, I can totally resonate with that. And I started incorporating all of that into my yoga classes and teaching workshops on feeling enough, using yoga, meditation, tapping, all the stuff. And and then I closed my salon. About a month later, I had all of my clients followed me into my living room in my condo. And I thought, you know, I was going to be this overnight success, you know, life coach. And that did not happen. But a month later, I fell and I broke my wrist. I broke my wrist in like three places. I fractured it in 3 places. So I couldn't work. And I had hardly any income. I was teaching a few yoga classes, but I had to take off for a few weeks. So that was like, you know, a major sign for me, like, jump off the ledge already, Meryl, right? Just jump off. And the universe was, you know, pushing me for the millionth time to move forward and move on. And I never went back to doing I do my own nails. That's about it. I never went back to doing nails. And I did join the coaching program with that first coach that I wanted to do, because this was a year later. And then I just started working with other coaches and eventually loving tapping and wanting to be certified in it, because I found that it was the best modality for me to manage my own nervousness, anxiety, fears, doubts, all of that, and heal from my past. And I've just like I immersed myself in my nail business and my career, and I constantly did continuing education, and I became an educator, and I was some of my work was shown in nails magazines and things like that. And and that's what I'm doing with this. I've just immersed myself in as much continuing education as I can, because I really love to guide people to the root causes of why they hold themselves back, and feel like where they learned and how they learned that they needed to stay quiet, that they needed to stay small, that everybody else was more important than them, that they had to people please, or overgive in order to be liked or loved, and not have those healthy boundaries set, right? And, not say no, and, just constantly saying yes. So that's why I've done so much continuing education and healing your past, because that's where we end up going a lot with my clients. So I've created my own signature 5-step process called the emotional clearing method, which we focus a little bit, on healing the past. So it's uncovering where you are, creating your goals, finding out where you learned to hold back in your life, and what where your issues stemmed from, healing all of that, removing the emotional tensities and everything to all of that, and then rewiring your subconscious reprogramming needs to be rewired. So that's where you want to catch yourself in the present moment of this automatic behavior or this automatic thought, and you want to rewire it, right? So tapping helps us to dismantle it and disrupt it quickly, so that we can, and with consistent practice, it will rewire. And then anchoring in using law of attraction principles to your goals and the self-image and the life and everything that you do want. So I run the gamut, of all of it. It's not just a forward focused practice, and it's not just healing the past. It's the whole trajectory, and really focusing on the goal is very, very important.
So let's just go back for a tiny little bit. So you saying, the women that come to you, they recognize by that time, by the time they come to you, they recognize that they're being held back, that something is holding them back, that they're not satisfied. There's something, maybe, as you said, regrets. Maybe there's that wish of doing something, or really that question that so many people ask, what am I doing here? What is my purpose? What is the meaning of my journey here? How like what is the first thing that you might be doing with someone that comes to you, with this question? I mean, what is my purpose, I think, is a question that I hear so often. And sometimes people, when they come to me, I feel that they are expecting that I will be able to kind of, do a magic wand thing and tell them what it is. And I'm like, I don't know what it is. But what is that journey looks like on the ground?
Yeah, great question. So the way that I was taught to coach is to be your detective and be your guide. Because when my client has the aha moment, or when the thing comes to them, it's much more powerful than me giving suggestions. Not that I don't, when the time is right. And I do get lots of downloads and intuition and everything, in my sessions. But, it's very important that they, have the aha moments. So typically, I want to know how they want to feel in their life, not necessarily what they want in the material world. How do you want to feel in your life? Because all of my clients who come to me overthink, have overwhelm, and they're all up in their heads. They're not connected to their body or their feelings necessarily. They might know that they're frustrated. They might know that they're sad. There's lots of spinning, right, going on.
Yes.
So that's really where, I keep asking, they might say, I want to have a loving relationship. Okay, well, why? Well, I want to feel connected to someone and share my life with someone. Well, why? Right? And you just keep asking why, and you keep asking why, and you keep asking why. And, underneath it all, it's like, well, I want to feel that I matter. I want to feel love. Right? And, well, why don't you feel it within on your own? Well, I don't know. I get that a lot too. So we just keep digging, right? And it's all at my client's readiness, right? It's not at, me telling them that we have to do this or go here or whatever. So I focus more on how they want to feel than anything. And that does bring out eventually the material goals, right, that they want, and their whole life changes.
And how are you deciding then? Because the title of the conversation, I guess, is healing, ancestral trauma. How do you decide, or what is guiding you towards what part, where to touch first? So is it really that the person is being held back because of ancestral trauma, or is it something that is coming from this life, or how are you determining that?
Well, most people that come to me are pretty aware of their current hesitations and what's not going right now. And they're aware of what their trauma was growing up. Small trauma, big trauma, whatever it is. They're aware, but they haven't healed any of it. And they haven't really connected the dots of how that has created these behaviors and thoughts in them now. So that's what we do with the work together, is we bridge that gap. And I mean, the first thing that I teach people is just how to tap and breathe. That's it. And after our first session, that's probably the only thing I'm telling them that I want them to do as often as they can, every single day, 3 times a day if they can, just to help start to regulate their nervous system and manage their emotions and keep bringing themselves back to inner peace, right? Everything, just back to inner peace, back to calming the mind and feeling grounded. And in our sessions, we will go through on a scale of 0 to 10. How worthy are you feeling today? Well, only a 5. Well, why is that? Well, I have these doubts of, growing a business, or I doubt myself in my relationship, and I know I'm holding myself back and I'm really frustrated. Okay, well, what are those numbers? And then we go with the highest number, and we just keep following the little breadcrumbs down the winding path. And when we've done a lot of the healing of the current stuff, it always leads us, well, is this familiar to you? Yeah, it's familiar. Well, does it bring you back to a time when? Yeah, it brings me back to a time when I was bullied in school, or a time when my mother said this, or a time when my father said he was going to be around and he wasn't. So I feel abandoned. So when we've done a lot of that healing and the numbers are pretty low on the scale and things are a little more managed, then we can go in and we can heal the ways that their mother or father had limiting beliefs and were stressed, because I believe that it all stems from there and their parents and so on and so on. So what I teach them to actually do is heal the limiting beliefs and the stress that, between this, my client and their mother. We'll work on maybe that first, unless the relationship with the father was more dominant. It depends on however the situation needs to go, right? And we'll work on that, and then we'll work on the relationship with someone else, and then I'll ask them to feel into, if they knew their grandparents or maybe they didn't know their grandparents, it doesn't matter, feel into their grandparents. And if they were if they had to flee from another country to the United States or something, like, that's a big trauma, and we don't necessarily think of it that way, but there could be scarcity mindset can come from something like that, or lots of fear or anxiety can come from something like that. So we work on healing those paradigms and patterns, because then that ends up healing it in our DNA. So it heals it in us, and then if you have children, it can heal it in them, and so on. So I wouldn't say that I go in so quickly with ancestral healing, because we need to clear a lot of the other stuff and really see what the patterns are that, the core beliefs and what the patterns are that we're really working with.
That's so interesting. I mean, I work myself a lot with, conditioning and recognizing a lot about the limiting beliefs that as you say, where did they come from? Who said that you should do this or that, or you shouldn't do this or that? And there's a lot of that conversation, because even when people recognize where it's coming from, it's not necessarily easy to say, okay, now I know what to do next.
Right.
But it sounds like you have a good way of doing that. So what do you do next? What is next in the journey?
After you do ancestral healing, you mean?
So you're saying you start with your own lifetime, limitations and where you stuck and where is it coming from. Then you're going on to talking about your parents and the ancestral line, and then what? Because what we're saying is that sometimes when you identify the thing, is not necessarily the solution. It's just making you more aware. But there is a way to release that, right? To let it all go.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we do inner child healing, which I call self-compassion tapping. That was a training that I took. That's what they titled it as. And it really is learning how to soothe your wounded inner child who was not parented in the way that they needed. So that's something that we do. And yeah, I mean, are you asking what the ancestral session looks like? I'm not sure what you're.
No. I was. What I was saying is that it was interesting to hear that actually, as you say, you start in the present,
Yeah.
moving slowly to the past, then going into other pasts,
Yeah.
and then I guess that when you identify all of the, maybe not all of them, but the most important limitations or
Right.
um, holdbacks, then you can do something to release them, so that you can
Yeah.
then move on to the goals and what people actually want from
Exactly.
them.
Exactly. Yeah, and it could take, depending on someone's journey, it could take 1 month, it could take 6 months before we get to ancestral healing,
Right.
depending on their journey. It's not something that I'm going to, just necessarily jump
Yeah.
right into, because people need to, um, I feel, not only build trust in the relationship with me and our work, but they need to build trust within themselves, that it's safe to go to their past, right? So we might need to do a lot of clearing, we might need to do only a little bit of clearing, it depends. I mean,
Yeah.
today if I went to work with someone, it's like I can go right in deep to my past because I've done so much work, but not everybody can.
Right.
Some people are, again, they could be aware, but they haven't really done any healing. So they need to start at the surface level and
Yeah.
slowly dig underneath.
So what are some things that people find in this past and that surprised them, or really made them think, ah, now I understand. Now it all makes sense. Can you give us some examples?
Well, they find out that um, they don't necessarily realize what their parents were feeling or what they went through. They might still be holding on to resentments and anger and sadness and all of that. And they haven't really, the one thing that how I was taught to do this ancestral healing and even the inner child healing is to bring in lots of reframes. So, really reframing for my client what the other person in the relationship was going through and experiencing.
Mm.
So that is usually very powerful and transformative for my client. Um, they don't, usually my clients who come to me really don't know how unworthy they feel. That's really, so I don't necessarily, like, even from a business, entrepreneur and a marketing standpoint, I don't necessarily use those words because my clients don't necessarily, they're like, I feel worthy. But then when we really do the work, they're like, wow, I really don't feel worthy, you know? And I don't mean in their whole entire life, but maybe in one part.
Yeah.
So I think that they're sometimes surprised by that. And they're just not aware of how the behaviors of their parents really affected them.
Yeah.
You know, they understand what happened, but they don't really understand how it really affected them.
Yeah. I mean, I'm thinking back to some of my clients, and it is. I agree that, you know, also for me, it took a long time to really trust, you know, in the environment, in themselves, in the session, and all of that, to really go there. And then when they recognize the patterns of, you know, of behavior when they were young, and the expectations, and really that definite of, you know, this is how we do things, and recognizing that them now as adults, they don't want to do these things anymore in this way. They have their own lives, their own, you know, their own goals, their own thing that drives them forward. And actually that, you know, fight between what I'm expected to do and what I want to do, it's it's so huge, actually. um and then, you know, what you're saying, of course, about the worthiness, it's, am I worthy, is such a identity level question. So I imagine that when you find that with your clients, they probably really feel that they really unlocked something that was, you know, buried so deep for all
Yeah.
these years.
Yeah. And they really, this just popped in to say is that they're all wanting to feel seen and heard, supported, loved, cherished, and that they belong and they want to feel connected. They all want that. And they all did not know they weren't getting it.
Right. And that sounds
Not
so.
those words. You know, they might know that their mother worked all day and they were a latchkey kid and they came home to an empty house or something. Or they're, you know, they're like single mom or something like that. Or they knew that their father was an alcoholic and he was never around. You know, or he worked all day and then when he came home, you know, they had dinner as a family, and then he went into the living room to turn the TV on to drink, and there was no connection. There was no, you know, they couldn't, my clients couldn't go necessarily and speak to them, or, right. And they were just left alone a lot, you know, to process. So there's this, you know, it's not safe to express myself,
Yeah.
you know, and then that, right, that just creates all sorts of spinning because they know deep and down, I feel they know deep down inside, excuse me, that they are worthy, but it's their ego is so big and so used to, no, you're not, being told that you're not.
Right.
So it's learning how to tame, right, the inner critic voice and be friends with the inner critic voice and love when you're triggered and challenged by these things, so that it's just guiding you to turn right back into yourself constantly, right back here, right back here, right back here into your heart.
And so, just looking at the time, we have not much time left together, but I want to know a little bit more about the, then of course there's a lot of clearing, and then you say, you know, there's a basically building up of the better future, which
Yeah.
is better, I'm not sure is the right word, but a future that is more aligned with who you are and what you really want to.
Yeah. Well, it automatically just starts to happen because once you can clear all this emotional clutter, not even all, once you clear 2% of it,
Right.
in the quantum energy world, quantum physics world, 2% of shifting your energy is huge, huge. So if someone comes to me and they say, you know, I feel unworthy at a 9, right? Even if they can shift that down a tiny bit to an 8.5 or whatever, that will open up new opportunities and new perspectives and things for you. You just have to keep that going, right? And, you know, healing is always like kind of a forward and back or a spiral down and up and down, you know, it's this journey that is just constantly flowing. And it gets easier over time, you know, definitely gets easier over time. But I mean, for me, you know, I'll always be on it. It's at every level, there's a new devil, right? Right. So
Absolutely.
learning it at every level. Um,
Can you share with us like a success story of one client that their journey was particularly inspiring for you?
yeah, it's hard to narrow it down to one, but my one client came to me, married for 35 years. Her husband never was emotionally there for her. All she wanted was to be seen and heard. He never asked, "How are you doing today?" He wasn't a bad person. He just didn't know how to express himself. And because she was so riddled with anxiety, they just never really connected on that deep, intimate level. And she always felt that he wasn't there for her. And just by healing her trauma and the ways that she was triggered and increasing her confidence, now he's showing up for her. Now he's saying, let's go to marriage counseling together. Now he's writing his own resentment lists. Now he's, right? How are you doing? So that's just after 6 months. And then I also, if I can, just share one little other quick story. I worked with someone who had extreme anxiety, could not even sit still when we were working together, tapping her toe, shaking her leg, she couldn't even keep her eyes closed, right? She was just really riddled with anxiety. She could not fly or do anything scary or handle lots of challenges. And we never worked on the flying. We never worked on handling challenges. We never worked on the scary things. We worked on her trauma from her past. Now, all of these other things, she's free of. She doesn't have to take any medication or anything to fly or go on a scary Halloween hayride because she loves Halloween. And she can handle lots of challenges all at once without shutting down and feeling overwhelmed. So
That's quite remarkable.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So Mary, we're coming towards the end of the conversation. Tell us a little bit about what some programs or promotions, things that you have going at the moment, so people can get in touch after listening to you.
Yeah, thank you. You can sign up through my website, merylhayton.com, and you'll receive a 7-day Tapping into Worthiness freebie. And I have a free Facebook group, Empowering Community for Women. I'm on all the socials under my name. I have an ancestral healing session, limited time only, 90-minute special. It's a session special for $333. And I want to say that what you learn in those sessions, you will be able to use in other relationships. So it's like the session is something that you can like reuse over and over and over and learn from. So it's not just a one-off thing. And then I have a virtual class on March 21st at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That is liberate your voice, learn how to communicate in your relationships so that you get your needs met all the time. And I think
amazing. And we're going to have the links to all of this in the.
I'll give you all the links.
Yeah, we're gonna use them.
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Meryl, for being here with us. I find it fascinating and so really so interesting to consider that journey. I mean, I really like the idea that you go back as far as you need, or as far as you can, and recognizing all these patterns and things that you basically adopted, I should say, into your life without even recognizing. And now that you can really set yourself free. It's been fascinating.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you very much for everyone watching the replay on the podcast channel. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them here, and we will be in touch. I guess we will get it going. Thank you so much again.